Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's lecture, it's lecture about the UI. It's a part 3 of the UI. We're going to learn how to add a scroll view, a scroll bar in here to have more items if you want. Remember in the last lecture, we had an issue where if the items are duplicated, they get, it's like they get, it's too compact and you can just navigate between them. So in this lecture, we're going to add how to add the scroll. We're going to learn how to add the scroll, and we're also going to learn how to add navigation menu in here. So you can select it between the list or the storage or the inventory and so on. Now, if you look at this, we also have the buy button here, which we could also add an icon. We could teach you if we have time. But first, if you see this new view, if you update it to the latest package or the latest studio package, you might see that you have 4 virtual players and then you have the simulator in here. Now to get rid of this view in the play mode, what you can do is you can go to edit, project settings, and in the project settings, there's something called enable or switch layout on play mode. You have to turn that off and then save, Control S to save, and that's it. Now, you don't have to do this, but I personally like Studio better this way. And if the assets button and the login button and the others are gone, you can go to window and then you can go to editor mode and you can change the modes from Highrise Studio Advanced, for example, and then go back to the older or the previous mode, which is Highrise Studio. I like to use Highrise Studio, it's my favorite. You can use the advanced one if you want, but this is what I'm more comfortable with. This is really about, it's more like a personal preference. Anyway, so in the shop UI, there are a few things that we are going to do. First things first, we are going to change the, okay, so if we look at our code right now, we have a product list inside the body. So we're going to change the visual element into something called Highrise, then UI scroll view. Oops, scroll view. Now, when you change that, you have to change the closing element to the same one. So Highrise UI scroll view. And that being said, when you change the element name, you have to go to your Lua, which is shop Lua, and you have to change the visual element in here to Highrise, UI Lua, or UI scroll view. Okay, so that's changed and that's good. Let's go ahead and simulate adding junk items. For example, if you scroll down here, we have a create product collection. And for each item, what we are going here is we're basically creating the item, right? So what if we want to generate, so we have 3 items here, but we want to generate something like, let's say 9 items. Let's first create mockup products. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing this to get the styling right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a function, and this function I'm going to call it create mock product, which takes the index of what the item is, and then we're going to just return an object which has, or a table which has an ID if we want to add an ID, and we're just going to call it mock for now to string, and it's going to be the index. You don't have to do this, but if you want to just see what it's going to look like, then you can go ahead and do it. But for now, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to say mock product and then the index, and then the price is going to just be um, math random. And then for the description, we can just do anything. Image is nil. This will basically replace it with the placeholder. And now that's done, what we are going to do is we're going to change a few things in the create product collection. What I'm going to do is, to not mess this up, I'm going to comment this function out, and then I'm going to duplicate it and create, sorry, oh my god. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this function and I'm going to get rid of what's inside of it and use them as a product mockup. So let's go ahead and say for I equal 1 count do end, and in here I'm going to pass the count so we can call um, how many products we want. Then it's just going to say local product equal create mock product, and then we're just going to pass in the I for the index, and then the local product item is just going to be the create product item product, and that's it. I'm not going to explain really much on what is this about, and then I'm just going to pass in 15 here to create 15 mock products. But basically, I'm creating a function that creates a mock product that doesn't exist, and then I populate the list with like a specific count of products, and I just loop through um, that count, and when we reach 15, it's just going to stop generating those products. So let's test this function really quick. If I exit play mode and I enter play mode again, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, perfect. So you can see here that each product has each mockup product has a name, which is mockup product 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it has a buy button, and all of them work perfect. Now these are just mockup products. You can see a placeholder here, and that's because we set the image as nil. But we're gonna explain about this in a bit. Now we do have an issue. Now you can see that it's no longer compact, and you can tell that we actually have a list here that has that ends in here. So let's right click and open the UI tool debugger. Let me just scale it on my other monitor and bring it to this view right here. And what we can do is we can actually yeah, let's keep it here. It's fine. Pick up element, and then we can use this list right here. Now, if I select this UI, this UI scroll view, you can see here, I can't hover over it, but you can tell that there's more content that's behind the shop UI that can be loaded. And if I scroll down one by one till I reach, for example, this product item, you can see that I can visually see that they exist, but I need a way to scroll. And to do it, we have to change the values for the scroll bar and the scroll bar thumb to see it in here. Because look, if I hover over it, you can tell that there is a scroll, but it's not visible. So let's fix that by making it visible. Let's go back to our code, and now we have to do some USS work. So I'm going to remove the USS from here, the shop and this, and I'm going to keep the shop UXML, and I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to put this over here like we always do. Make this full screen, and we're going to move this around, and then make this bigger and move the USS in here. Now, you can tell if in the UI tool debugger, we have a UI scroll bar that has the class scroll bar as well as the scroll bar thumb. But we don't have this in the UXML, and that's because they are built in. When you create the UI scroll view, it will automatically create those for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to call them inside the USS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment here. I'm going to say scroll bar, and the again the classes are the first one is scroll bar, and the second one is scroll bar and then thumb. I'm looking, if you don't know where I'm getting these from, I'm looking at these values right here, these classes. And we can also add a hover effect, so we can just go ahead and say hover over here. And let's just give them random numbers. First, let's go with the width of 4 pixels, for example. We can go with a border radius of 2 pixels, and then we can set a background color to something like RGBA. Just make it semi-transparent. These are numbers that you can change however you want. And we're going to do the same for the thumb. The thumb is going to have a border radius that matches the border radius that we have over here. Don't have to change the width because it's already reflecting the width. And then for the background color, we can make something a little bit more bright. So let's go with something like 155 for all RGB, and then semi-transparent for the or low opacity for the A. And we can go with the background color of something that we used earlier in our code, maybe this. Or yeah, let's try that for now. So let's go with something like this. And then when that's done, if I click here, you can see that we actually have a scroll bar, and it works. So when I hover over it, You can see it change. To make it more visible, let's set a purple color here and look at that. So this is when I click on it, you can see that I can scroll and up and down and it works perfectly. Great. Now that's exactly what we want. Now, if you were to change a few things, like let's say you want to add padding here because the scroll is over the items, what you can do is you can access. Remember, we do have a product list an item here, but this will not really work. So let's say we remove that. It's not going to change much about the styling. And that's because if you bring the UI tool debugger and you find the scroll view, which is this one that has our class product list, you can tell that it has other classes. It has a scroll view, it has a scroll view vertical, it also has another element inside of it. We didn't create this element, but it automatically creates it for us. Scroll view content viewport, and then there's scroll view content container. So you have two elements inside of it, and it also has two extra classes. And you can see here that we don't have those in it, or these in our UXML code. So let's go ahead and write down these classes. So what we are missing is the scroll view content viewport and the scroll view content container. Now with these you can manage a few styling. For example, the container, if you add a padding for 10 pixels and then you go here and then just add it like a padding of 10 pixel, it's okay. Yeah, you can see that it's gonna change its size, and that's because we are changing the padding inside the container, even though the container and the viewport does not exist in here. You can leave those empty, you don't have to change them, but if you were to change them, you're free to do so. Let's try to set the width of 100% and then the height of 100% and change the background color to something like red. This is not very visible, but what if we do that to the viewport? You can see that this is the viewport behind it. So you can play around with these numbers, but I believe what we have right now is pretty solid. And I would like to change this to white. That's white when we hover over it. Okay, it's perfect. And it's looking really good, right? I think that's all for the scroll view. That's pretty much all. Now, what if we want to, let's say, what if we want to create a navigation list or a navigation menu that you can select shop or inventory, or you can have like a filter or something. So let's create a new, a new navigation element, and that's going to be, it's either under the header, separate from the body, or inside the body above the product list. Now, both works fine, but let's see what is the body taking. So if I set the background to red right now, and this is what the body is taking. So if we make the navigation above the body has a 5 pixel padding, which means that our navigation will also have 5 pixel padding. But let's go ahead and try that, because why not? So let's go ahead, and inside the body we're going to create a new visual element, and we're going to call this element navigation, and we're not going to give it any name right now because we don't need that. What I'm going to do inside the navigation is I'm going to create navigation items. So let's go ahead and say navigation, or nav item for short. So let's give it a name. Copilot suggests that we call it weapons, and that's actually a good idea because I didn't know what to call them. So let's make one for weapons, and then close the element, and then inside of it we're going to set a label. That one is going to be weapons, and we're going to do the same for armor and so on. So then we have potions, right? So this way you have shop that let's also add, we don't need to add a misc right now. Let's just add weapons, armor, and potions. This way we can access weapons, potion and armor on the navigation, and then we'll just get the list of all the potions, all the armor, and so on. So again, as we all know, if we go back to Unity, it's gone, and then we have to restart our game and start our game again. So let's do that. So now that we are in the game, you can see here that this is not exactly what we are looking for. That's because of the flex direction. It's because it's set in a row. So we have to remove the flex direction from here, or we can just set it to column. But that's not really necessary, because if we completely get rid of the flex direction in the body, it's basically going to set it by default to column. And you can see here that our scroll bar is still exists in our list. But the navigation is a little bit messy. So let's go ahead and say navigation. And first things first is the flex direction. It should always be in a row if you have a navigation like this. You can see that we have weapons, armor, potion, and we have a nav item. So let's access the nav item by doing nav item just for now. And inside the navigation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these. First, I'm going to align the text. So in the nav item, since we have a label, I'm going to set a Unity text align. I'm going to say middle center to center the text. And then the align items for the label is going to be align items. It's going to be center, as well as the justify content is also going to be center. So this way we make sure that those are centered. Now, the navigation must have a height. So let's go ahead and say background color to red. We always change the background color to see what's going to look like. The width is going to take the full width of the body, so that's going to be 100%. And then the items, or the justify content, is going to be center. What's going to happen? Going to put them in the center, and then if we align the items, align items to center. Perfect. And now, if let's say you want to move these, or actually let's set a specific height for the navigation. Let's try 50 pixels. 50 pixels looks good. I don't want the items to be in the center, so I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to get rid of the background now because we don't need it anymore. And I'm also going to there is an option that you could use if you have like three items, but you don't want them to be close to each other. What you can do is justify content, and you can do content space between, and this will basically make a space even between them. You can have a weapons, armor, potion, and then you can just add a padding on both left and right to push them together. This is a good way to do it, but I personally don't like it. I like to keep it always like this. I always like to have flex start. I think it's flex start. Yes, it's flex start. You don't need the padding anymore, so you have like so. Now, one more thing that we can do is set an active one. How do we tell if this, for example, let's say this weapon is the one that's clicked? How can we tell that we are in the weapons section? Now we have to have a class called active. So remember when we learned about having multiple classes? You can do this with the state. So let's go with the nav item for the weapons, and let's go ahead and say active for that. And if I refresh, it's all, of course, it's gonna remove my UXML. And let's hit play again and see what's gonna look like. Now, nothing changed, and that's because we didn't access the active class yet. So what we're going to do is we are going to access the nav item first. So nav item, and then dot active. To access multiple classes, you have to connect them. Remember when we learned about this with the images? That's how you do it. And then you can set the border, let's say border bottom width for 2 pixel, and then border bottom color. You can have a color of white or something if you want to. And this will tell you that, oh, look, this we are in this section. And this is getting a little bit boring with the colors. What if we try to do something like, for example, color orange, and we can use that color orange for stuff like maybe the hover, maybe the buttons. So where do we have the nav items? Here. So let's go ahead and say var color orange, and this changed, and we can do border radius just something like 2 pixels, so for example. Um, but yeah, I don't think you're gonna notice much difference, so let's just keep it as it is. So this way we can have buttons, and we can also do something like scale 1.1. This will just make it bigger. But when we want to make it bigger, we probably have to change the font. So let's go with the nav item and change the font. So font size 18 pixel. Yeah, that's better. And then it's a bit too much, right? Let's go with 16 pixel. Yeah, 16 pixel looks good. Let's go with Unity font definition. Let's go with var font black. Now this font is default by Highrise. Oops. Oh, my bad. Okay. I forgot to add the double dashes. You can do, there's regular, there is, oh, sorry. It's not, okay. Not applying because of that. There's regular, there's black, there is italic, I think. There's thin, yes, and there is bold. There are a few options that you can choose from, but we can go with something like regular, and then when it's active, instead of changing its scale, we can set the Unity font definition to maybe to something like bold, so font bold, and then click here. So this is when it's bold, but it's not very convenient because it's gonna change the size. Maybe you could do bold here and then black here to match the balance. But again, I think scale works fine in our case. Let's go with scale 1.1. Scale 1.1. So this is a little bit bigger. Now let's add a margin right maybe, or we could add a padding. A padding will basically push things a bit. Yeah, it's gonna push things a little bit. Let's try something like 5 pixels. Five pixels seems reasonable, but the border here is a little bit broken. So let's go with a margin right to 5 pixels. Yeah, I think that works the best. You can bump this up however you want, 8 pixels. It's really up to you. Okay, so that's done. What we're going to do is we're going to set a nav item, and we're going to apply the hover effect whenever someone hovers over it. We are going to change the scale to 1.1, and we're going to change the color, and we are going to change we're going to set a background. You can see now when we hover over the items, it's going to do this, but I don't like the background, so I'm going to get rid of that and instead just keep the scale and then of course, the color. Perfect. You can do a lot of stuff in here. If you want to, you can go ahead and say like background color. You can add whatever background color you want in here. It's really up to you if you want to do that. If you don't have to. But if you decided to do it, you can do it. Anyway, so we have weapons, we have armor, we have potions. Now, we want a way to set the state to active whenever we click on these buttons. First, let's register these buttons. We already did put names for each one. So let's go ahead and bind them. So local weapons. Actually, this is a good idea. Let's give them a better naming. So armor button, and to be more specific, let's say weapons nav button, nav, and navigation. Let's go ahead and copy this and bind them for every single button that we have. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to copy the name that we have over here into 3, and then I'm going to add a comment, and I'm going to say nav buttons. Okay. That's it. Now, if we register these buttons, let's register them here and then move down whenever we want to. So let's go ahead and say weapon nav, register press callback, function, weapon buttons pressed. Let Copilot do it for us, armor button, and then the potions. Let's cut these and we're gonna move them next to our callback. So we have a close button here. Let's put them in here just for, to organize our code a bit. Okay, perfect. So now what we are going to do is we need to set states for each button when it's clicked. So what we can do with the state, we can either have a string or you can have an index that tells which state the button is in. So I can go ahead and say local button state or nav button state, for example, button state is equal to it could be 0, right? And you can also set a table. It's really up it's really up to you. So this is something that you could do. You can have the weapons set to true, for example, by default. It's the enabled by default. That's when you first it's set active by default. And then you could create a function in here that will basically check which one is um, clicked, right? And then it would just basically populate the classes and do everything for you. Let me show you. So what we can do here is we can set the values. Let me I'm gonna give you an easier way to do it. Instead of setting this, what I'm going to do is which might be a little bit confusing, but it's better for having more stuff in your UI. So let's go ahead and say local button state is going to be a number. That number is going to be 0. So let's say 0 equal weapons, 1 equal armor, and then 2 equal potions. I will tell you what this is about. So now we track this state. So when this state is set to 0, it means that we are in the weapons page. If it's set to 1, it's in the armor, and if it's set to 2, it's in the potions, okay? And what we can do here is basically just change the state. So we're going to, we're going to say if nav button state equals 0, then we're just going to set it to 0 and we're going to return. But instead of doing this for every single one, because look, we have to put inside each callback that we are doing, what we can do is we can create a function, and that function can be called something like function track button state, and then we can go ahead and say state, and this is going to be a number, and you're going to set an end. If, for example, state equal button nav button state, then return end. This means that this function, when it's passed in here, it will check for the state, and if it's equal to the current state, it's not gonna do anything. So let's pass this function in here, and let's go and say track button state, and we're gonna say 0. And let's go ahead and say the same thing here. So track button state is gonna be 1, and then track button state is going to be 2, right? Because we said 0 for the weapons, 1 for the armor, and potions is 2. And I can get rid of this print if you want. This is just to make sure that it works. Okay, so now we're gonna check each state. So we first need to get the active one. So let's go ahead and do that. So nav button state equal to the normal state. And then we are going to set it to active, right? So depending on which state we are going to set active. So let's go ahead and say if state equal 0, then else if state equal 1, then else if state equal 2, then else end. Okay, print invalid state or unknown state, for example, unknown state, string state. So what we are going to do here is if we are in the 0 state, we are going to set the we're going to set the active class uh, to that specific button. So for the weapons, we're going to set it active, and we're going to remove the class from the other ones, and we're going to do the same over here for every single one of them. Now this code is not very ideal to have such a long code. There's more methods to enhance this or to make it readable. Right now, I think it's easy for you to write it this way. It works fine. You basically check for the state, and if the state is equal to the same state, it's not going to do anything. But if not, it's going to change the state, and then it's going to check. Is it 0? Then it's going to add the class active, and then going to remove it for every single one, and so on. Now this is a good way to do it. It's for beginners. It's fine. You can do it. It doesn't really matter. Okay, that's done. I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to exit the play mode, and I'm going to enter the play mode again once I finish compiling scripts. So enter the play mode again, and we are in here. So we are in armor, potions, weapons, armor, potion, weapons, and if you click again, nothing happens. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want, right? Okay. So now that we have these, what we are going to do is we are going to have separate functions that creates separate pages for each one, and then populates them based on the button that we click. Correct? Let's do that. What we can do here is we can set the count number as to number, and what we can also do is set the name of the mockup. And in here we are going to say weapons, so weapon, okay, no weapons. And in here, we're also going to pass in the name. And this is basically a number. And in here, we are going to pass in, so mock product. So yeah, let's say weapon instead, because this is, so weapon, because this is gonna look weird if we save. So we have here mock product. What we're going to say is mock, and then the name. Why is this converting it into a number? One sec. So create, sorry, my bad. Here we're gonna pass in the name as well. String name. We don't even need this. This is a mock product 2, and then of type weapon. Okay. So what's happening here is that we pass in the name. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just for showing you what it's gonna look like. This is just visual, okay? The create mock product returns the product, okay? So you can see here that we have name, description, image, price. And in here, we have a product that gets a name, price, description, and image. But we call the create mock products in the create product collection. Since we added the navigation items, we want a way to render the armor by itself, and then the potions, and then the weapon. And to do that, to tell the difference between them, we added a key here that gives us the name. So for example, now if we go back in the main, of course, in the main page, we can keep this because that's when the script is enabled. But we're going to change a few things in here, and I'm going to show you what. We're going to check for the state. So look at this. So we're going to go ahead in here, and we are going to say, should we create a new function, or should we just call this function? To call this function, we have to move all of this under the product. So let's move pretty much everything related to the buttons to to under the mock products to somewhere around here. Yeah, that's good. Now we can call the other functions inside these functions. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's add a local function in here. And let's add a create product collection. So create product collection. How many do we want? Let's say 5 for the weapons, right? And let's say weapon. We're gonna do the same for the create product collection. Let's do 10 for the armor, and we can do like 20 for the potions, right? Or to bump these up a little bit, not to make them really that huge. Let's do 6, 8, 15. Yeah. So now if we click on the weapons button, it's just gonna create the product collection of the weapon. If you click on the armor, it's gonna do the same, and the potions is also going to do the same. Now this way, every time you open the shop, it's going to always show you in the weapons tab, because we are basically clearing the list and then we're creating it again. But if you want to, yeah, what you can do is basically, you can set a state here to negative. You can set a state to -1, and that's on load. When it first start loading, you can load it, and then when you change the state, we can get rid of this and we'll just check the state. But for now, this setup is fine. Let's exit the play mode. Wait for it to compile. Okay, enter again. And if we maximize, we have this list of products. It says here, mock weapon 2, weapon 3. If we go to armor, it's gonna say armor. If we go to potions, and it's going to do the exact same thing. And if you look at the numbers that we have 8 products, we have 6 products, and then we have 15 products of the potion. Does that make sense? That's basically how you can make a navigation menu, and you can make them basically do stuff like, you know, it's also mock product. Let's add in space in here. Okay, yeah, just to make it look better. Anyway, that's done. What do you think if we add an image to the price? Let's find the price. Do we have a, what do we call the price button? This is why we kept this one over here. We called it purchase button. So let's find the purchase button. This is the purchase button. In the purchase button, we are going to add an image in here, and that image should come maybe, what do you think if we put the image on the left side and we get rid of the buy button? Yeah, let's do that. So we should have an image over here. So it's going to look something like this, image class, and it's going to be gold icon, something like this. We're not going to create this here. Instead, we're going to do it with Lua, but let's add a styling to it. Or first, let's actually create it for now, just to show you how we're going to add the style. So we need an image that has a class called gold icon. In the shop Lua, we're going to go back to the first function we created, which is this one. And in here, we have a buy and then the product price. What we are going to do is we're going to get rid of these. We're going to keep just the price. And instead of doing the label, we're going to first create the image. So let's go ahead and say local product purchase button icon equal image.new. And that image is going to take the name. It says here purchase icon, which is what Copilot suggests, but I'm gonna call it gold icon. It's really the same. So gold icon, and I'm going to add this. Now, what you can do is you can set an image using your own gold icon. So, for example, if you have a function in the product metadata that gets the icon of whatever currency you have, you can do that. But in this example, I'm just gonna use the gold icon. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that, and instead I'm going to add this icon to the button. So let's go ahead and say that. So product purchase button add, and they're just going to add the product purchase icon. Okay. If I click here, it's nothing's going to happen. It only happens because I changed the UXML. But remember, you have to exit the play mode and enter the play mode again to see changes to the Lua or the UXML. So if I enter again and I maximize this, you can see here that nothing happened. I don't see any icon. I don't see anything, and that's because we haven't actually set it. But if you look at the UI tool debugger and you select it, and you expand the purchase button, you can see that we have an image, but that image doesn't do anything yet. So let's go ahead and fix that. In the USS, we're going to go to the purchase button and we're going to access the image. So we're going to say purchase button, and then we are going to access the image inside of it. So image, remember when you add space, it accesses the image inside. Let's first set a width and a height to something like 30 pixels. And let's set a background color to see what's going on with this. And save, and you can see it's right here. That means there are a few things that we need to change. Remember when I said the flex direction is always in column by default? But in this situation, we want it to be in row. So let's say flex direction row, and now we have an image, and then there's the price. Let's lower the width and the height for the image. That's perfect. Let's set the overflow to hidden, so we don't have an overflow. And now we are going to set the image. So what we can do is we can use the default gold icon, and I actually have a thumbnail right here. I have a link that you can copy. Let me get it one sec. I have it saved in here. If I scroll all the way up here and in the root, so this is the link that I have. It's basically database packages. You access the package with this com.pz.studio and then assets, sprites, currency, gold, thumbnail. I think you can access this thumbnail directly. I'm not sure. I've never tried that, but if you have another way, you can do it. I mean, if you have your own image, you can use your own image for what's worth. But yeah, let's access the image using Unity image, and we're just gonna say var to var to get the variable for the gold icon. And if I click here, see here that there's the gold icon. Now we can get rid of the background. It's a little bit too big, so let's do something like 18 pixels by 18 pixels, maybe. That looks good. We have justify content, and we're gonna say here align cell just to be 100% sure to put it in the center. And to go with the label, do we have a font size for the purchase button? I'm not sure. Let's add a font size of 16 pixels. Or what if we match it with 18 pixels? What's gonna happen? Yeah, that looks a little bit better, yeah? Yeah, I like that. Okay, that looks a lot better. We're gonna also add a border radius a bit higher to 10 pixels. Something like this. That looks good. That looks great for me. I love this. And I'm gonna get rid of this joystick in a second. It's really annoying me. But anyway, so we have armor, we have potion, we have weapons, and we have buttons that are clickable. We have icons for the... by the way, the prices are changing. It's because we have mockup data. We can ignore that. You will have an actual data. So in this tutorial, we learned how to add scroll view or scroll bar. We learned how to add navigation and sections and how to render each one. We learned how to add icons for the buttons or for the prices. We learned a lot of things in this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm thinking we could learn more about storage, how you can save them in the storage, and how about you extract them from the storage, and how you connect these products to an actual in-world purchase item, or how you can create your own currency. If you want to learn that, please let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you learned something new. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.